My brother destroyed my law school application. Then he needed the attorney I became. I found the acceptance letter in my brother's desk drawer while looking for a phone charger. Yale Law School, it said across the top in dignified serif font. Congratulations, Mr. Liam Ashford. We are pleased to offer you admission to the class of 2019. The letter was dated April 15th, 2015. 3 years ago. I'd never seen it before because it had never reached me. My hands started shaking as I held the paper, expensive cotton stock, slightly yellowed at the edges from being hidden away. My name was on it, my social security number, my undergraduate GPA and LSAT score, both of which I'd worked myself half to death to achieve. This letter should have changed my life. Instead, it had been intercepted, hidden, and buried in a drawer beneath old tax returns and warranty cards for appliances we no longer owned. I stood there in Kevin's home office, the acceptance letter trembling in my grip, trying to understand what I was looking at. My brother had stolen my future and kept it in a drawer like a trophy. The phone charger I'd been searching for was forgotten on the desk. I pulled open the other drawers, my movements frantic now, no longer careful about putting things back. In the bottom drawer, I found more. A second letter from Columbia Law, also accepting me, dated 2 weeks after the Yale letter. A scholarship offer from Georgetown, all addressed to me. All opened and read, the envelope slit carefully with what looked like a letter opener. None of them had ever reached my mailbox. I'd applied to 8 law schools my senior year of college. Got into none of them, or so I'd thought. The rejection letters had arrived throughout April and May, polite form letters expressing regret and wishing me well in my future endeavors. I'd kept every one of them, reading and rereading them in my tiny apartment, trying to figure out where I'd gone wrong. My LSAT score had been in the 98th percentile. My GPA was nearly perfect. My personal statement had been reviewed by 3 professors who all said it was excellent, but somehow I'd been rejected everywhere. Except I hadn't been rejected. I'd been accepted. The letters had just never reached me because Kevin had taken them first. I'd been living with my parents that final semester of college, saving money before what I'd assumed would be the massive expense of law school. Our house had a communal mail situation where everything got dropped on the kitchen counter, and whoever got home first would sort through it. Kevin had been working from home that spring, some consulting job that let him set his own hours. He would have been the one collecting mail most days while I was in class or at my part-time job. He would have seen the law school letters arrive, would have opened them before I ever got home, would have read my acceptances and made a choice to hide them from me. The rejections, though, those he would have left for me to find, making sure I believed I'd failed. My stomach felt like I'd swallowed concrete. This wasn't a mistake or a mix-up. This was deliberate, calculated sabotage by my own brother. Kevin was 31, 5 years older than me. He'd gone to law school himself, graduated from a mid-tier state school, passed the bar on his second try, and spent the last 6 years working at a small firm doing estate planning and contract review. Respectable work, decent money, nothing spectacular. When I'd told the family I was applying to law schools, aiming for the top programs, he'd been encouraging. Told me I had a real shot, that my scores were better than his had been. Offered to review my personal statement and give me tips for interviews. I'd thought he was being a good older brother, mentoring me through the process. Now I understood he'd been sizing up the competition. He'd seen my LSAT score and realized I was going to surpass him, that his little brother might end up at Yale or Columbia while he'd scraped by at a state school, and he couldn't handle it, so he'd made sure I never got the chance. I sat down in his desk chair, still holding the Yale letter, my mind racing through implications. I'd spent the last 3 years believing I wasn't good enough for top law schools. I'd worked as a paralegal at a small firm, saved money, retaken the LSAT even though my score had been excellent the first time, and reapplied the following year. That second round of applications had resulted in actual rejections. The schools wanted to know why I'd taken a gap year, why I hadn't enrolled anywhere the previous cycle. I'd explained that I hadn't gotten in anywhere I wanted to attend, which made me look like I had an ego problem or poor judgment. The admissions committees had seen a candidate who'd mysteriously failed to get into any law school despite strong credentials, then tried again a year later with the same materials. It looked strange. Looked like maybe there was something wrong with me that didn't show up on paper. I'd eventually gotten into a regional law school. Not bad, but nowhere near Yale or Columbia. I'd graduated 2 years ago, passed the bar on my first try, and was working as an associate at a decent firm in Philadelphia, making good money, doing interesting work, building a career. But it wasn't what it should have been. It wasn't what I'd earned. Kevin had taken that from me, had literally stolen my acceptance letters and destroyed the trajectory of my entire professional life. And he'd done it from a place of pure insecurity, because he couldn't stand the idea of his younger brother being more successful than him. I thought about the last 3 years, the self-doubt I'd felt, the nights wondering what was wrong with my application, the way I'd questioned my own intelligence and worth. I'd thought I wasn't good enough, had internalized that failure so deeply that it had affected how I saw myself. All because Kevin had decided his ego was more important than my future. The rage that washed over me was so intense I couldn't breathe for a moment. My hands clenched into fists, crumpling the Yale letter. I forced myself to smooth it back out, to carefully set it on the desk with the others. These were evidence. I'd need them. The office door opened and Kevin walked in, carrying a beer and wearing weekend clothes, relaxed and comfortable in his own home. He saw me sitting at his desk, and his expression shifted from casual to confused. "Liam, what are you doing in here? I thought you were just grabbing a charger." I held up the Yale acceptance letter. His face went completely blank. Not surprised, not confused, blank. The reaction of someone who knew exactly what they were looking at and was calculating their next move. "Want to explain this?" I asked. My voice came out steady, cold. Kevin stared at the letter for a long moment, then at me. "Where did you find that?" Not, "What is that?" or, "I don't understand." Just, "Where did you find that?" Confirming he knew exactly what it was. "In your drawer," I said, "along with Columbia and Georgetown, all accepting me to their law programs. 3 years ago. Letters I never saw because you took them." He set his beer down on the desk, the movement careful and controlled. "Liam, I can explain." "You can explain why you stole my law school acceptances and hid them so I'd think I'd been rejected everywhere? I'd love to hear that explanation." Kevin ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I'd seen 1,000 times growing up. "You don't understand the pressure I was under. You were about to go to Yale, and I'd barely gotten into state. Do you know how that would have looked? How Mom and Dad would have compared us forever?" The justification hit me like a slap. "So you destroyed my future because you were insecure?" "I didn't destroy anything. You still went to law school. You're still a lawyer. You're doing fine." "I'm not at Yale!" The words came out as a shout. "I'm not at Columbia. I'm at a regional school that no one's heard of because when I reapplied after you made me think I'd failed, I looked like damaged goods. You didn't just hide letters, Kevin. You derailed my entire career path." He had the audacity to look defensive. "You would have been insufferable if you'd gotten into Yale. You already thought you were smarter than everyone. This humbled you, made you a better person." I stood up from the chair, the acceptance letters clutched in my hand. "You're genuinely trying to tell me that sabotaging me was for my own good?" "I'm saying maybe things worked out the way they were supposed to. You're successful. You have a good job. Maybe you weren't meant to go to an Ivy League school. Maybe you would have flamed out, and then where would you be?" The gaslighting was so blatant it was almost impressive. He'd stolen my future and was now trying to convince me it had been a favor, that I should be grateful for his sabotage because it had built character or some nonsense. I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and saw someone I'd never fully understood before. Someone whose entire identity was built on being the successful older brother, and who'd been willing to commit fraud and destroy family trust to maintain that identity. "I'm keeping these," I said, gesturing to the letters. "I'm also never speaking to you again unless I'm legally required to." Kevin's expression hardened. "You're overreacting. This was years ago. You need to let it go." "I need to let it go? You committed mail fraud, which is a federal crime, by the way. You intercepted and concealed mail addressed to me. You actively sabotaged my education and career. And your response is that I need to let it go? What are you going to do, sue me? I'm your brother. You stopped being my brother the moment you decided your ego was more important than my future." I walked out of his office, the letters still in my hand. Kevin called after me, saying something about talking this through like adults, but I was done listening. I'd come over to his house for a Sunday dinner with his wife and kids, a normal family gathering. Now I was leaving with evidence of his betrayal, my entire understanding of the last 3 years shattered. His wife, Monica, caught me at the door. "Liam, are you leaving? Dinner's almost ready." She saw my face and her smile faded. "What happened?" I almost told her, almost laid out exactly what her husband had done, but I just shook my head. "Ask Kevin. I won't be staying for dinner." I drove home to my apartment in Center City, Philadelphia, the acceptance letters on the passenger seat. My hands were shaking so badly I had to pull over twice to calm down. I kept thinking about Yale, about the career I should have had, the connections I should have made, the opportunities that should have been mine. Kevin had stolen all of it because he couldn't handle being less successful than his younger brother. When I got home, I spread the letters out on my kitchen table and took photos of each one. Then I called someone I should have called years ago if I'd known what Kevin had done. My uncle, Richard Ashford, was a partner at a major law firm in Boston and had been practicing for 30 years. He'd been disappointed when I hadn't gotten into any top schools, had offered to make some calls on my behalf, but I'd been too embarrassed to accept. Now I needed his advice on what exactly Kevin had done legally and what my options were. "Liam," Uncle Richard answered on the second ring. "This is a surprise. How are you?" "I need legal advice," I said, "about something my brother did." I explained the whole situation, the hidden acceptance letters, the sabotage, the 3 years of believing I'd failed when I'd actually been accepted to Yale and Columbia. Richard was quiet for a long moment after I finished. "You have the physical letters?" "Yes, and I took photos as backup." "Send them to me. I'm not an expert in this area, but my colleague Douglas Pemberton specializes in fraud cases. From what you're describing, Kevin likely committed multiple federal crimes. Mail fraud at minimum, possibly wire fraud if he sent any electronic communications to the schools pretending to be you, identity theft if he accessed your accounts or forged your signature." I just want to understand what he did, I said. I don't know if I want to press charges against my own brother. Richard's voice was gentle but firm. Liam, I love my nephew Kevin, but what he did to you was unconscionable. This wasn't a prank or a mistake. This was calculated sabotage that altered the course of your professional life. You need to at least understand your legal options. I sent Richard the photos, and he forwarded them to Douglas Pemberton, who called me the next morning. Pemberton was in his 50s, had spent 15 years as a federal prosecutor before moving to private practice, and had a reputation for being thorough and relentless. Mr. Ashford, he said when I answered, your uncle filled me in on the situation. I've reviewed the photos you sent. First question, were you living at your parents' house when these letters were delivered? Yes. I was finishing my senior year of college and living at home to save money. And your brother was also living there? No, he had his own place, but he was working from home that semester and would come over during the day. He had a key and treated it like his house too. Did he ever have legitimate reason to collect your mail? Not specifically my mail, but he'd grab the mail from the box if he was there. The whole family did. We'd leave it on the kitchen counter for people to sort through. Pemberton was quiet for a moment, and I could hear him typing. That complicates the mail fraud charge slightly, but doesn't eliminate it. The key question is whether he had authorization to open mail specifically addressed to you. Did you ever give him permission to open your mail? Never, I said firmly. We had an understanding in the family that you didn't open other people's mail. You could collect it and put it on the counter, but opening it was crossing a line. Good, that helps. Now, did these law schools require you to confirm your enrollment by a certain deadline? Yes, most of them had deposit deadlines by May 1st. If you didn't respond, they'd give your spot to someone on the wait list. And you never received any follow-up communications asking why you hadn't confirmed? I thought back, trying to remember. I got emails from a few schools in late April and May asking if I'd made my decision. At the time, I thought they were just automated messages to applicants. I ignored them because I thought I'd been rejected anyway. I wasn't checking my application portals anymore. Kevin would have needed to prevent you from seeing not just the physical letters, but also any electronic communications. Did he have access to your email? My stomach dropped. We used the same laptop sometimes. I kept it at my parents' house because my own computer had broken. If he was there during the day when I was in class, he would have had access. Pemberton's voice sharpened with interest. Do you still have access to that email account? Yes, it's my main email. I've had it since high school. I need you to check your spam and trash folders from April and May of 2015. Don't delete anything. If Kevin moved emails from law schools into your spam folder or deleted them, there may be a recovery trail. I pulled up my laptop while still on the phone with Pemberton and started searching. It took 20 minutes, but I found them. Dozens of emails from Yale, Columbia, and Georgetown in my trash folder from April and May 2015. Congratulations on your acceptance. Reminder to submit your enrollment deposit. Final notice. Your deposit deadline is approaching. We haven't received your enrollment confirmation. All deleted, all unread by me. I'd never seen them because Kevin had accessed my email and made sure I wouldn't. I found them, I said, my voice hollow. All in trash. All from April and May 2015. I never saw any of these. Can you forward them to me? The metadata will show when they were deleted and potentially from what IP address. I forwarded the emails to Pemberton, my hands numb. This was worse than I'd thought. Kevin hadn't just hidden physical letters. He'd actively monitored my email, deleted messages from law schools, and systematically ensured I'd believe I'd been rejected. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was sustained, deliberate fraud over a period of weeks. Mr. Ashford, Pemberton said after a pause, this is more extensive than simple mail fraud. If Kevin accessed your email account without your authorization, that's a violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. If he deleted emails from educational institutions, that's destruction of documents. If he prevented you from enrolling in a federally funded educational program through fraudulent means, that's education fraud. You have multiple felonies here. What are my options? I asked. You can report this to the FBI. Computer crimes and mail fraud fall under federal jurisdiction. They'll investigate, and if they find sufficient evidence, they'll prosecute. You could also pursue civil litigation for damages, emotional distress, fraud, interference with business relationships. The law schools might have causes of action as well, since their legitimate communications were intercepted. I sat with that information, trying to process it. Turn my brother in to the FBI, sue him for destroying my career. The family would implode. My parents would never forgive me. Kevin's wife and kids would suffer. But he'd committed multiple federal crimes to sabotage me, and he'd shown no remorse when confronted. He'd tried to gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting. I need time to think about this, I said. Of course. But Mr. Ashford, there may be a statute of limitations issue depending on which charges you pursue. I'd recommend making a decision within the next few weeks. I thanked Pemberton and hung up, then sat staring at my laptop screen, at the forwarded emails from Yale and Columbia, at the evidence of my brother's betrayal. My phone rang. It was my mother. Liam, Kevin called. He said you two had a fight and you left his house upset. What happened? I took a deep breath. Mom, I found acceptance letters to Yale and Columbia Law School hidden in Kevin's desk from 3 years ago. Letters I never saw because he intercepted them and hid them from me. Silence on the other end. Then, carefully, that doesn't sound like something Kevin would do. I have the letters right here. I also have emails he deleted from my account, preventing me from seeing communications from the schools. He systematically sabotaged my law school applications because he couldn't handle me getting into better schools than he did. Liam, that's a very serious accusation. Are you sure you're not misunderstanding something? The instinct to defend Kevin was immediate and predictable. He was the golden child, the firstborn, the one who'd done everything right according to our parents' timeline. I was the younger son, the one who'd taken a gap year and gone to a less prestigious school. Of course they'd doubt me. I'm not misunderstanding anything. I have physical evidence. Kevin admitted to hiding the letters when I confronted him. He said he did it because he was under pressure and didn't want to be compared to me. My mother sighed, the sound conveying disappointment in me for creating family drama. Well, it was 3 years ago. You're a lawyer now anyway. Is it really worth destroying the family over something that happened so long ago? The casual dismissal of what Kevin had done was staggering. He committed multiple federal crimes to sabotage my career, and your response is that I should get over it because time has passed? I'm saying you both need to talk this through like adults. Kevin made a mistake. He's apologized, hasn't he? He hasn't apologized. He told me I was overreacting and that sabotaging me probably made me a better person. Another sigh, heavier this time. You're both being dramatic. Come to dinner on Sunday, and we'll all sit down and work this out. I'm not coming to dinner with someone who destroyed my future and shows no remorse, and I'm not going to pretend this is a minor argument that can be smoothed over with a family meal. Liam, you're being unreasonable. Kevin is your brother. Family is more important than law schools or careers. I hung up. There was no point continuing a conversation where my own mother was more concerned with maintaining family peace than acknowledging that one of her sons had sabotaged the other. I spent the next week in a fog of anger and grief, going through the motions at work while my mind kept circling back to the acceptance letters, the deleted emails, the future I should have had. My colleagues noticed something was off, but I didn't explain. What would I even say? I met with Pemberton again the following week. He'd analyzed the email metadata and confirmed that the messages had been deleted from an IP address registered to my parents' house during hours when I would have been at class or work. Your brother left a clear digital trail, Pemberton said. The deletions occurred systematically over a 6-week period, always during times when you weren't home. He was monitoring your email regularly to intercept any communications from law schools. Is that enough to prosecute? Combined with the physical letters he kept, yes. The FBI would have a strong case. But Mr. Ashford, I need to be honest with you about what prosecution would mean. This would become public. Your family would be involved. Kevin could face significant prison time if convicted. His legal career would be over. He'd be disbarred. His wife and children would suffer. You need to be absolutely certain this is the path you want to take. I thought about Kevin's kids, my niece and nephew, ages 6 and 8. Thought about them visiting their father in federal prison, growing up with the stigma of having a convicted felon as a dad. Thought about family holidays forever destroyed, my parents probably cutting me off for turning in their son. Then I thought about Yale, about the career I should have had, the connections I should have made, the trajectory Kevin had stolen from me because of his own insecurity, about the 3 years I'd spent thinking I wasn't good enough when I'd actually been accepted to one of the best law schools in the world. What if I don't want to prosecute but want him to face some consequences? I asked. Pemberton leaned back in his chair. You could pursue a civil suit for damages, lost earning potential, emotional distress, fraud. You'd likely win, and Kevin would face financial penalties and public exposure of what he did. You could also report him to the Bar Association. What he did violates several rules of professional conduct. He might not be disbarred, but he'd face disciplinary action. Would I need to prove anything beyond what I already have? The physical letters and email metadata are pretty damning. You might also want to check if Kevin sent any communications to the law schools pretending to be you. If he declined your acceptance on your behalf, that's another layer of fraud. I hadn't thought of that. I contacted Yale's admissions office, explained I was the Liam Ashford who'd been accepted in 2015, and asked if they had any record of communications from me declining the acceptance. The admissions coordinator I spoke with, Jennifer Nwosu, pulled up my file and went quiet for a moment. Mr. Ashford, we received an email on April 28, 2015, from your email address declining your offer of admission. The email stated that you'd decided to pursue other opportunities and wouldn't be enrolling. My hands clenched into fists. I never sent that email. Someone accessed my account and sent it without my knowledge or permission. I'm not sure what to say. Do you have evidence of this? Yes. I'm working with an attorney, and we have documentation that someone else was systematically accessing my email during that period and deleting messages from law schools. I never saw your acceptance letter or any follow-up emails because they were intercepted and deleted. I thought I'd been rejected. Jennifer Nwosu was professional but clearly disturbed. Mr. Ashford, if someone fraudulently declined your acceptance, that's a very serious matter. I'm going to need to escalate this to our legal department. Please do. I'll have my attorney contact them directly. I hung up and called Pemberton. Kevin didn't just hide my acceptance. He actively declined it on my behalf, pretending to be me. Pemberton swore. which was the first time I'd heard him break his professional composure. That's identity fraud. That's him explicitly representing himself as you to an educational institution. This is way beyond intercepting mail now. Yale's legal department contacted me 3 days later. The attorney, Michael Osei, had reviewed my file and the fraudulent email. Mr. Ashford, Yale takes this very seriously. If someone fraudulently declined your acceptance, that's not only illegal, but violated the integrity of our admissions process. We'd like to cooperate with any investigation you pursue. We'd also like to discuss what remedial measures might be appropriate. Remedial measures? If you were fraudulently prevented from enrolling in 2015, there may be options to revisit your application or consider late admission. I can't make promises, but I'd like to schedule a call with our admissions director to discuss possibilities. That call happened a week later. The admissions director, Dr. Patricia Chen. I stopped. I couldn't use that name. Let me revise. The admissions director, Dr. Rebecca Finch, was sympathetic, but realistic. Mr. Ashford, what happened to you is appalling. However, it's been 3 years. You've since attended and graduated from another law school. We can't simply admit you as a first-year student at this point. I understand, I said. I'm not asking to go back in time. I just wanted Yale to know that I didn't decline your acceptance voluntarily. Someone committed fraud using my identity. We appreciate you bringing this to our attention. We'll be flagging this in our systems to prevent similar incidents. I'm also going to recommend that we revisit our verification procedures for declined acceptances. It was something, but it didn't give me back what I'd lost. I thanked Dr. Finch and moved forward with planning my next steps. Pemberton recommended I file a complaint with the Bar Association in the state where Kevin was licensed, detailing his actions. The complaint would trigger an investigation, and Kevin would have to respond formally. Even if he wasn't disbarred, it would be on his professional record forever. I also decided to pursue a civil suit for damages. Pemberton calculated that the difference in earning potential between a Yale law graduate and a graduate from my regional school was substantial over a career. We were talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost income, lost opportunities, and emotional damages. The suit would be public. My family would find out. The legal community would talk. But Kevin had committed serious crimes, and he needed to face real consequences. I filed the bar complaint on a Thursday morning. By that afternoon, Kevin was calling me. I let it go to voicemail. Liam, what the hell are you doing? I just got notice of a bar complaint. You're trying to destroy my career over something that happened 3 years ago? Call me back. We need to talk. I didn't call back. 3 days later, the civil suit was filed. Pemberton served Kevin at his office, ensuring maximum professional embarrassment. That night, my phone exploded with calls and texts. My parents, my aunt and uncle, Kevin's wife Monica, family friends. Everyone wanted to know why I was suing my brother, why I was being so vindictive, why I couldn't just let this go and move on. I turned my phone off and focused on my own work. I was in the middle of a complex contract dispute case for my firm, and I couldn't let my personal drama interfere. But word got around anyway. One of my colleagues saw the filing, it was public record, and asked if I was okay. I gave him the short version. Kevin had sabotaged my law school applications, hidden my acceptances, and I was pursuing legal remedies. The colleague, Nathan Reeves, was a senior associate who'd graduated from Harvard Law. He looked genuinely shocked. Your own brother sabotaged Yale? That's insane. That's family, I said dryly. Nathan shook his head. If you need anything, let me know. That kind of betrayal from a family member is brutal. The support from colleagues helped. These were people who understood the importance of law school prestige, who knew what a Yale acceptance meant, who could comprehend the magnitude of what Kevin had stolen from me. My family just saw me as vindictive and unwilling to forgive. The Bar Association investigation moved faster than I expected. They requested documentation, which I provided. The acceptance letters, the deleted emails, the metadata showing when and how they were deleted, the fraudulent email Kevin sent to Yale declining my acceptance. Kevin had to respond within 30 days. His response, when it came, was predictable. He claimed it had been a misunderstanding, that he'd meant to tell me about the letters but forgot, that he'd never meant to cause harm. The bar investigator, Lawrence Winters, called me after reviewing both sides. Mr. Ashford, your brother's explanation is inconsistent with the evidence. The systematic deletion of emails, the concealment of physical letters, the fraudulent email declining your acceptance, none of that supports a narrative of innocent misunderstanding. I'm glad you see it that way, I said. The investigative panel will make a recommendation, but based on what I've seen, I expect they'll recommend disciplinary action. This is a clear violation of professional ethics. Your brother used his knowledge of the legal system and his access to your personal information to commit fraud for personal gain. What kind of disciplinary action are we talking about? Could range from a reprimand to suspension to disbarment. That will depend on the panel's assessment of severity and whether your brother shows remorse. Kevin, in typical fashion, was not showing remorse. According to Lawrence, his response had been defensive and minimizing. He'd characterized the whole situation as a family dispute that didn't belong before the Bar Association. That attitude would not help him. The civil suit was progressing as well. Discovery revealed even more evidence of Kevin's sabotage. We subpoenaed his phone and computer records from 2015 and forensic analysis showed he'd accessed my email account 38 times between April and June of that year. 38 deliberate intrusions into my privacy, each time checking for and deleting messages from law schools. Pemberton built a damages case, showing that Yale law graduates had median starting salaries nearly $50,000 higher than graduates from my school. Over a career, that differential compounded into millions of dollars. We also documented the emotional toll, the therapy I'd needed for anxiety and depression after believing I'd failed, the self-doubt that had plagued me for years, the damaged relationship with my family. Kevin's attorney tried to argue that I'd suffered no actual damages since I'd still become a lawyer, but that argument fell apart quickly. The difference between Yale Law and a regional school wasn't just about money. It was about opportunities, clerkships, partnerships at top firms, career trajectories that I'd been robbed of. The deposition was scheduled for a cold morning in January, 11 months after I'd found the letters. Kevin showed up with his attorney, looking tired and angry. We sat across from each other at a conference table, and for the first time since the confrontation in his office, we made eye contact. He looked away first. The deposition was brutal. Pemberton walked Kevin through every detail of the sabotage. Made him admit he'd taken my mail, opened letters addressed to me, hidden them in his desk. Made him admit he'd accessed my email without permission, deleted messages from law schools, sent fraudulent communications declining my acceptances. "Why did you do it?" Pemberton asked, his voice clinical and detached. Kevin's attorney objected, but Kevin answered anyway. "I was under a lot of pressure. Liam was about to succeed where I'd struggled. I made a mistake." "A mistake?" Pemberton repeated. "You accessed his email 38 times over 6 weeks. You systematically deleted every communication from Yale, Columbia, and Georgetown. You sent emails pretending to be him. That's not a mistake, Mr. Ashford. That's a calculated campaign of fraud." Kevin's face flushed red. "I'm not proud of it. But you did it." "Yes." "And when your brother confronted you, did you apologize?" "I tried to explain." "Did you apologize? Yes or no?" "No." "Did you tell him he was overreacting and that sabotaging him had probably made him a better person?" Kevin's attorney put a hand on his arm, but Kevin shook it off. "Yes, I was defensive. I said things I shouldn't have." "Do you understand that your actions destroyed your brother's opportunity to attend one of the best law schools in the country?" "He still went to law school. He's still a lawyer." "That's not what I asked. Do you understand that you stole an opportunity he'd earned through years of hard work?" Kevin stared at the table. "Yes." The deposition lasted 4 hours. By the end, Kevin looked broken, and I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. He'd finally been forced to admit what he'd done, on the record, with no ability to minimize or gaslight. 2 weeks later, the Bar Association panel issued their recommendation: 6-month suspension of Kevin's license to practice law. Not disbarment, but serious enough to damage his career and reputation. He'd have to disclose the suspension to his employer, to clients, to anyone who ran a background check. The stigma would follow him forever. Kevin appealed the decision, but the appeals panel upheld it. 6 months without his law license meant 6 months without income from his legal work. His firm would likely let him go. He'd have to find another position after serving the suspension, and most firms wouldn't want to hire an attorney with disciplinary action on their record. The civil suit settled a month before trial. Kevin's attorney recommended settlement because the evidence was overwhelming and a jury would likely award substantial damages. We settled for $375,000, plus a written apology acknowledging what Kevin had done and the harm it caused. The apology was stilted and clearly written by his attorney, but it existed, a formal admission of guilt that I could keep forever. My parents called after the settlement was announced. My father spoke first. "Liam, you got your money. Can this be over now?" "It's over legally," I said. "But our relationship is over too. I'm not interested in pretending this didn't happen or that we're a happy family. He's your brother. You need to forgive him eventually." "No, I don't. He stole years of my life and damaged my career permanently. The fact that you still think I should just forgive and forget tells me everything I need to know about whose side you're on." My mother took the phone. "You're tearing this family apart, Liam. Kevin tore this family apart when he sabotaged me. I'm just refusing to pretend it didn't happen." I hung up and blocked their numbers. I was done with family members who valued peace over justice, who cared more about appearances than accountability. 3 years passed. I focused on building my career, building a reputation as a meticulous and aggressive litigator. The settlement money from Kevin had allowed me to pay off my student loans and save aggressively. I moved to a better apartment, started dating again, built a life that didn't include family drama. Then one morning in September, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Liam Ashford?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes." "My name is Veronica Strand. I'm a defense attorney in Philadelphia. I'm calling because I have a client who specifically requested you as counsel." "I'm a civil litigator, not a criminal defense attorney," I said. "I don't take criminal cases." "I understand, but my client was insistent. His name is Kevin Ashford." My hand tightened on the phone. "My brother?" "Yes. He's been arrested and charged with embezzlement and fraud. He's asking if you'll represent him." I started laughing. Couldn't help it. The absurdity of Kevin asking me for help after what he'd done was too much. Is this a joke? No, Mr. Ashford. Your brother is in serious legal trouble. He's facing federal charges that could result in significant prison time. He says you're the best attorney he knows and he needs your help. Did he tell you what he did to me? There was a pause. He mentioned you'd had a falling out. He sabotaged my law school applications, hid my acceptance letters to Yale and Columbia, and destroyed my career trajectory because he was jealous. I sued him and got him suspended from practicing law. And now he wants me to represent him? Another pause, longer this time. I wasn't aware of the full history. I can tell him you're not interested. I should have said yes immediately. Should have hung up and blocked the number. But I was curious. What exactly is he charged with? Embezzlement from his former law firm, wire fraud, money laundering. He allegedly diverted client funds into personal accounts over a 2-year period. The evidence is substantial. Of course, Kevin had committed more fraud. Of course, he'd escalated from sabotaging his brother to stealing from clients. How much are we talking about? Approximately $280,000. I thought about that. Thought about Kevin in federal custody, facing the same kind of charges he'd once subjected me to investigation for. Tell him I'll meet with him once. No promises. I drove to the federal detention center where Kevin was being held. Hadn't seen him in 3 years, not since the settlement. He looked terrible, thinner, older, with dark circles under his eyes and a defeated slump to his shoulders. We sat across from each other in a consultation room, a guard visible through the window. Thank you for coming, Kevin said quietly. I wasn't sure you would. I'm not sure why I did, I said. You sabotaged my life, and now you want me to save yours? I know what I did to you was unforgivable. I know I don't deserve your help. But I'm desperate, Liam. The prosecution has me dead to rights. I need an attorney who's smart enough to find a defense, and you're the best I know. I'm a civil litigator. This isn't my area of expertise. You're also my brother. Doesn't that count for anything? I leaned back in my chair. You destroyed that relationship when you hid my Yale acceptance. You don't get to invoke family now that you need something. Kevin's eyes were red-rimmed. I made mistakes. I've made so many mistakes. Sabotaging you was just the beginning. After I got suspended, I was desperate to make money. I started taking shortcuts, moving client funds around, telling myself I'd pay it back. But it spiraled. And now I'm looking at 10 years in federal prison. You embezzled almost $300,000 from your own clients, people who trusted you. I know. You betrayed everyone who ever relied on you, including your own family. This is who you've always been, Kevin. Someone who puts himself first, no matter who gets hurt. He put his head in his hands. I can't go to prison, Liam. I have kids. Monica's already talking about divorce. If I'm convicted, I lose everything. You should have thought about that before you committed multiple felonies. Will you help me or not? I studied my brother, this person who'd sabotaged my future and was now begging me to save his. I thought about Yale, about the career I'd lost, about the 3 years I'd spent believing I wasn't good enough. Then I thought about who I'd become despite all that. A successful attorney, respected by colleagues, financially secure, building a life on my own terms. Kevin's sabotage had hurt me, but it hadn't broken me. I'll review your case, I said finally. I'll look at the evidence and tell you honestly whether you have a defense, but I'm not promising to represent you. And if I do take your case, you're paying my full rate. No family discount. Kevin nodded eagerly. Anything. Thank you, Liam. Thank you. I left the detention center and requested the case files from Veronica Strand. Spent the next week reviewing every document, every bank transfer, every email showing Kevin systematically stealing from his clients. The prosecution's case was airtight. Kevin had left clear digital trails, had failed to cover his tracks, had gotten sloppy in his desperation for money. There was no defense. Not a real one. I could argue for a plea deal, try to get the sentence reduced, but Kevin was going to prison. The question was, for how long? I met with him again and laid it out. The evidence is overwhelming. You're going to be convicted. Your only option is to plead guilty, cooperate fully, show remorse, and hope for a reduced sentence. Kevin's face crumbled. How reduced? If you cooperate, and the prosecution believes you're genuinely remorseful, maybe 5 to 7 years instead of 10 to 15. But Kevin, you're going to prison. That's not negotiable. Can't you find something? Some technicality? Some procedural error? I'm not going to manufacture a defense that doesn't exist. You committed these crimes. The evidence is clear. The only ethical path forward is to plead guilty and take responsibility. You're supposed to be my lawyer. You're supposed to defend me. I stood up. I am defending you by telling you the truth. You have no defense. Fighting this will only make things worse. If you want my help, you'll plead guilty, allocute honestly, and throw yourself on the mercy of the court. If you want a lawyer who'll lie to you and take your money while you sink deeper, hire someone else. I walked toward the door. Kevin called after me. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Watching me lose everything. I turned back. I'm not enjoying it, but I'm not devastated by it either. You made choices, Kevin. Just like you chose to sabotage me, you chose to steal from your clients. Actions have consequences. You're finally learning that. So, you'll just let me go to prison? I'll negotiate the best plea deal I can get you. I'll argue for the minimum sentence. I'll do my job as your attorney. But I'm not going to pretend you're innocent or that you deserve sympathy. You're a criminal, and you're going to face the consequences of your crimes. I represented Kevin through the plea negotiations, worked with the prosecution to get a deal, 7 years in federal prison in exchange for full cooperation and restitution to all victims. Kevin would have to repay every dollar he'd stolen, plus penalties and interest. His law license would be permanently revoked. His marriage was over. Monica filed for divorce while he was awaiting sentencing. His kids would grow up visiting their father in prison, dealing with the stigma and shame. The sentencing hearing was on a gray morning in November. I stood next to Kevin as he addressed the court, reading from a statement his therapist had helped him write. He apologized to his victims, to the legal profession, to his family. He acknowledged his crimes and accepted responsibility. The judge, Honorable Diana Kozlov, was unmoved. Mr. Ashford, you violated the sacred trust between attorney and client. You stole from people who came to you for help. You betrayed your professional oath and committed serious federal crimes. While I appreciate your cooperation and guilty plea, the severity of your actions demands serious consequences. She sentenced him to 7 years in federal prison, to be followed by 3 years of supervised release. Kevin would be 51 years old when he was released, his legal career over, his family destroyed, his reputation ruined. He turned to me as the marshals prepared to take him away. Thank you for representing me. I know I didn't deserve your help. No, you didn't, I said. But I'm a lawyer, and you needed legal representation. That's the only reason I did this. He nodded, then paused. I'm sorry. For Yale. For everything. I destroyed your future because I was weak and jealous. You became successful anyway, and I just kept making worse and worse decisions. You were always better than me, and I couldn't handle it. I know, I said. It was the closest thing to closure I'd get. Kevin was led away in handcuffs, and I walked out of the courthouse alone. My Uncle Richard was waiting outside. He'd come to support me through the hearing, understanding how complicated it must be to represent the brother who'd sabotaged me. How are you holding up? He asked. I'm fine, I said. Kevin made his choices. I did my job. That's all this was. You got him the best deal possible. 7 years instead of 15. You saved him 8 years of his life. I know. I'm a good attorney. Richard smiled slightly. You are. Yale would have been lucky to have you. We walked to a nearby coffee shop, and Richard brought up something he'd mentioned before. My firm is expanding our litigation department. We're looking for experienced civil litigators. Your work on the Kevin case showed incredible professionalism under difficult circumstances. I'd like to offer you a position. Richard's firm was one of the top firms in Boston, the kind of place that recruited from Harvard and Yale. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you an opportunity. The position would be senior associate with a clear track to partner. Better pay than you're making now, more complex cases, more resources. You've proven yourself despite not having the Ivy League pedigree. We want lawyers with your skill and integrity. I thought about it for approximately 5 seconds. I accept. 3 months later, I moved to Boston and started at my uncle's firm. The work was challenging, the expectations high, but I thrived. I was finally working at the level I should have been if Kevin hadn't sabotaged me. My colleagues respected me, my billable hours were strong, and I was building a reputation as a formidable litigator. 2 years into my position at the firm, I was assigned a major case, a class action suit against a pharmaceutical company for fraudulent marketing practices. The lead partner wanted me as second chair because of my attention to detail and aggressive litigation style. The case went to trial, and we won a $120 million settlement. My name was in the legal publications, my reputation established. The managing partner called me into his office a week after the settlement. Liam, we're offering you partnership. You've proven yourself as one of our strongest litigators. We'd like to make it official. Partnership at a major Boston firm. The kind of position Yale law graduates typically got. The kind of career trajectory Kevin had tried to steal from me. I'd gotten there anyway, through a longer and harder path, but I'd made it. I accept, I said, shaking the managing partner's hand. That night, I thought about calling my parents to tell them about the partnership, but I hadn't spoken to them in years, and they'd made their choice to support Kevin over me. I didn't need their validation. I called my mentor instead, the senior partner who'd believed in me from the beginning. We went out for dinner to celebrate, and he raised his glass. To the newest partner at Ashford & Associates, you've earned this. I raised my glass in return. To earning it the hard way. The hard way builds better lawyers, he said. You're proof of that. Kevin was 3 years into his sentence, housed at a minimum security facility in Pennsylvania. I'd received occasional letters from him, which I'd read but never responded to. He wrote about therapy, about finally confronting his jealousy and insecurity, about understanding the harm he'd caused. He wrote that he was proud of me for making partner, that he'd heard about it through family. He wrote that he understood if I never forgave him, but he wanted me to know he was truly sorry. I filed the letters away. They didn't change what he'd done, but they were something. Acknowledgement that he'd destroyed something he could never repair. 5 years after I'd found the acceptance letters in Kevin's desk, I gave a presentation at a legal conference about building a litigation career without an Ivy League degree. I talked about persistence, about proving yourself through results, about not letting setbacks define your trajectory. I didn't mention Kevin by name, but I alluded to the sabotage. Someone I trusted destroyed an important opportunity for me. They succeeded in derailing my path, but they failed in stopping my destination. I got where I was going. It just took longer. After the presentation, a young lawyer approached me. "Mr. Ashford, your story really resonated with me. I didn't get into any top schools either. I've been struggling with feeling like I'm not good enough." "You're good enough if you do the work," I said. "Prestige opens doors, but skill keeps them open. Build your skill, and the rest follows." He thanked me and walked away, and I realized something. Kevin's sabotage had hurt me, had altered my path, had stolen opportunities I'd earned. But it hadn't stopped me. I'd built a successful career, made partner at a major firm, and earned respect in my field. I'd become who I was supposed to become, just through a different route. Kevin was in prison, his career destroyed, his family broken, his reputation ruined. He'd sabotaged me and destroyed himself. I'd lost Yale, but I'd gained resilience, determination, and the knowledge that I could succeed despite every obstacle. 7 years after finding the letters, Kevin was released from federal prison. He'd served his full sentence, paid his restitution, and completed his mandated therapy. He was no longer licensed to practice law and was working at a consulting firm doing compliance review. He called me a week after his release. I almost didn't answer, but I picked up. "Liam," he said. His voice was different, quieter, less certain. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to tell you I'm out. I've completed my sentence." "I know. Monica told me." Kevin had been trying to rebuild his relationship with his ex-wife and kids, with limited success. "I wanted to say again that I'm sorry. I've had 7 years to think about what I did to you, to understand that I destroyed your trust and your opportunity because I was too insecure to handle your success. I can't take it back, but I want you to know I understand what I did." "Okay," I said. "I'm not asking for forgiveness or a relationship. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry, and that I'm proud of you for everything you've achieved. You're a partner at a major firm. You did that without Yale, without the advantages I tried to steal from you. You're a better attorney than I ever was." "I know," I said. "Not arrogant, just true. Thank you for representing me. I don't think I ever properly thanked you. You didn't have to do that after what I'd done. I did it because I'm a lawyer, and you needed representation, not because you deserved it." "I know. But thank you anyway." We talked for a few more minutes, awkward and stilted, then hung up. I didn't know if we'd ever have a real relationship again, but the conversation was something. An acknowledgement that we'd both moved forward from the worst moments of our lives. 10 years after finding the letters, I was sitting in my corner office at the firm, reviewing documents for a major case, when my assistant buzzed me. "Mr. Ashford, you have a call from Yale Law School, Dr. Rebecca Finch from admissions." I picked up, curious. "Dr. Finch, this is Liam Ashford." "Mr. Ashford, I'm calling with an unusual request. Yale is launching a new program for accomplished attorneys to come back for advanced legal studies and teaching opportunities. We'd like to invite you to apply." "Me?" I said. "You're an established partner at a major firm with an impressive track record. You'd be an excellent candidate for our program. It's a 1-year fellowship where you'd teach a class, conduct research, and earn an advanced degree. We'd also like to discuss a more permanent teaching position if you're interested." Yale was offering me a position. 10 years after Kevin had stolen my acceptance, they were inviting me back. "I'm interested," I said. "Send me the information." I applied to the program and was accepted. Took a sabbatical from the firm and spent a year at Yale Law School, teaching first-year students about litigation strategy and resilience in legal practice. I told them my story in the first class, about the sabotage, the stolen acceptance, the long path to where I'd ended up. "Someone tried to destroy my future," I said. "They succeeded in delaying it, but they failed in stopping it. You'll all face obstacles in your careers. The question is whether you let them stop you or whether you find another path." The students responded to the honesty. Several came to me throughout the year with their own stories of family sabotage, betrayal, and setbacks. I mentored them, encouraged them, and helped them understand that setbacks weren't failures. They were redirections. At the end of the year, Yale offered me a permanent position as an adjunct professor. I accepted and arranged to teach 1 semester each year while maintaining my partnership at the firm. I'd finally gotten to Yale, not as a student, but as a professor. Not through the path Kevin had tried to steal, but through one I'd built myself. Kevin wrote to me when he heard about the Yale position. "You got there anyway. I tried to stop you, and you got there anyway. I'm sorry I doubted you. I'm sorry I was too weak to let you succeed. You deserved Yale when you were 24, and you deserve it now. I hope teaching brings you joy." I wrote back for the first time in 10 years. "It does. Thank you." That was all. But it was enough. My brother destroyed my law school application. Then he needed the attorney I became. And I was good enough to help him, not because he deserved it, but because I'd become someone who does the right thing even when it's hard. even when it's for someone who tried to destroy me. That's the revenge. Not hurting them back, but becoming so skilled and principled that you transcend their betrayal entirely. Kevin tried to stop me. I became unstoppable instead. If you made it this far, hit like. You've earned it.